Hello and welcome to Community Conversations. I'm your host, KK Konishiro. In June 2014, Fremont voters approved Measure E, a $650 million bond to assist Fremont Unified in addressing enrollment growth and other facility challenges throughout the school district. Now in its fourth year, progress can be seen everywhere, with multiple new classroom buildings and plans for several more, as well as other upgrades in technology and infrastructure. Here to give us all the update on all things Measure E and a future look into the future are FUSD Facilities Construction Director John Swastik, along with Aaron Kale and Carl Schultz from Veneer Construction Management. And thank you so much for being here. We do appreciate this. Now, for anyone new to Fremont and has never heard of Measure E, what is it about? What does it do? What can we expect from it?
Well, as you mentioned, the dollar value, it's a $650 million bond. It's over a 10-year period, and it's based on a $1.6 billion needs assessment. Back in 2014, the community got all organized, and a consultant came in and found out a lot of information about what the district needs. And so a needs development or needs assessment was developed, and then it came out to be 1.6 million, boiled down to 650 million, and that's the first step at trying to achieve all the needs within the district.
Okay, so there's a big gap in what actually is needed and what we got approved for. So who decides what's priority as far as what needs to be done? Is that the school board or is it the school
Well, it would
principals?
be a combination.
Okay.
And it actually is outlined in the implementation plan that Veneer Construction Management has provided us.
Okay.
And it gets updated periodically, and we're following that process currently with each of the projects that get rolled out.
Okay, so now that we are in the fourth year, and people around the community have seen all the upgrades and the new buildings and everything, how much of the list is done? Can you give us a progress report?
So what did we say this morning? About 450 million of the 650 million is in some phase of construction.
Okay.
So that means it's either in design or construction, or we've wrapped it up. So we're moving along at a healthy clip right now.
Okay. Now, just from a personal standpoint, you've got a client who has all these dreams of getting all these things done, but as the actual construction company, how do you communicate to your customer, okay, well, I understand you want that done, but these are what the things that should be done first before we can go there. Was that a difficult conversation?
You know, we came in about 2 years ago, and we kind of assessed where the program was at the time, and we gave the district some recommendations.
Okay.
And one of those recommendations is that we start attacking each of the different campuses based on the scope that was provided in the long-range facilities plan. And so we help them define what that scope is going to be based on what that need is. So our documents might tell us that we need new HVAC and new IT, but it doesn't tell us exactly where. So we'll sit down with the principals and we'll define what that scope is, and then we'll help translate that into a construction contract. Okay.
Now, there has been, I mean, you guys have been swamped. I don't think busy is the right word. So at Brookville and Patterson, how has the staff and students been reacting to all of this new construction? Are they excited? Are they?
I think overall they're excited.
Okay.
And in any project, there's always going to be some bumps in the road.
Right.
But they were occupied on time, and there was, they had the ribbon cutting ceremonies. People are happy. The kids, the smiles on their faces. For the most part, everything went very well. Now, construction projects do get a little bumpy.
Right.
And then there's some fine tuning that needs to take place during the process. But overall, they've been well received.
Okay. Now, how do you do the construction when school's in session? How does that happen? Because there's a lot of noise.
Well, safety is our number one priority. So making sure that the construction work is separated from the students. Our construction management firms are constantly in communication with the principals and the staff to make sure the work is coordinated. But like I said, safety is number one.
Good. Good. And kids are curious.
Exactly.
But it's also a good learning opportunity too.
Oh, good.
So, we've done interactive trainings with the students at American, where we had a crane and we explained how the physics of the crane work. And
perfect.
So, yeah, and we've also done model cranes with some of the younger kids. So we also are trying to translate the work that we're doing into educational opportunities.
That's awesome, because they love to touch. They love to experience things. That's great. Now, speaking of American High, when you're driving down Fremont Boulevard, right in front of the school, there's 2 new buildings. What are those?
Yes. Actually, there are 2 new buildings that have, I believe it's 10 science classrooms and 8 regular classrooms in the
Wow.
building, so they're great. Students occupied them yesterday, so
Wow.
that's exciting. And the buildings came out great. Rodan Builders was the contractor, SV Architects were the architects, but they're great buildings, so they really look good on that corner.
So do they have labs and everything?
Yes, full science labs, fume
Wow.
hoods, they're state of the art.
I'm so jealous. Where were you when I was growing up?
I know.
Okay, now Walters Junior High School and at Horner, the ground will soon be broken to start construction and all of that. Do you have a time frame for when the actual move to middle school will happen?
Sure.
Okay.
So groundbreaking is actually happening at Horner on Friday, so that's really exciting.
Okay.
That's one of our kind of big celebrations this year. It's great. We're hoping to finish up in the summer of 2019.
Wow,
and
that's
so,
fast.
Yeah, so that site will be occupied for the 1920 school year.
Okay.
And the same for Walters.
Okay. Now, I'm assuming that during the school, when school's in session, your crew is still full time. When summer lets out for the kids, do you do double shifts to get it done faster?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes we've had on some projects people work almost 24 hours a day on different shifts and 6-7 days a week because of the tight time frames. We only get so many weeks during the summer
Right.
to modernize those existing spaces, and sometimes we have to run crews around the clock to be able to have them ready for the kids in the fall.
And the community has been accepting of all this?
We try to coordinate the noisy work so it's going to happen during the day,
Okay.
and then the less noisy work happens at night, and it's usually within an enclosed space, so it doesn't translate out into the neighborhood.
Oh, nice. You're so considerate.
We are, and we try to be coordinating with the neighbors too,
That's
because
great.
I mean, this is a community project.
Yes.
If we're not respectful of the community in the neighborhood, then they won't invite us back, and so we want to
Right.
make sure that we're really respecting the boundaries and we're doing right by the community and the kids.
Okay. I should have done this at the beginning of the show, but could you explain to our audience what your particular position is and what yours is at Veneer?
Okay.
Do you want to start?
So I'm actually Vice President and Area Manager for
Okay.
Vanner, so responsible for the East Bay operations.
Okay, so you're everywhere.
Everywhere but here at least 1 or 2 days a week.
Okay.
Make sure everything runs smooth.
Okay.
And then I'm our deputy director, so I'm in kind of charge of the day-to-day operations
Okay.
of our team here.
And then you are the liaison between,
I'm the district representative
Right.
that is the liaison between the board and the community to
Veneer.
the facilities and to Vanner and any other consultant that we have.
okay, that's great. And you're busy too.
And we have other projects that are not Measure E as well. So there's a
Can
lot
you
of
talk
things.
about that or
Sure.
go for it?
We have a few different projects that we have always, every year, some temporary portable projects because of our enrollment growth. We have recently acquired the Ricks property where the Glankler program is going to be moving into. So we're working on that process to get everybody in there.
Okay.
We're looking at we'll be presenting to the board soon in February for a study on the Robertson High School moving to the Fremont Adult School. And so there's a study to see if that's feasible or not.
So the plan is to have Robertson move to the actual campus on the Fremont Adult School in Calaveras?
We're looking at if that's possible
Wow.
and
Okay.
from everything, from a
But you're still
educational
keeping
point
the
of view.
Fremont Adult School?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Neither of these programs are
Okay.
going to be discontinued.
Okay, good. Now, even though we have Measure E, for the viewing audience, how are these other projects being funded?
It's a multitude of different funds.
Okay, but the
They're
money's
not
there.
funded by Measure E.
Okay.
Some are developer fees. Some are the sale of site funds that the board can choose whichever fund
Okay.
that would be appropriate.
Okay.
So there's other opportunities to get it.
Okay. Now, going back to Measure E, you've had several projects since 2014. Is there anything new that you've learned, or is each campus different, that no matter what you learned at the previous campus, you still can't use what you learned at this new campus because the facility is completely different? Do you know what I mean?
I mean, I think there's a combination of both. We're
Okay.
always learning, and so every client's a little different. Every client has their own culture, and so, for instance, we've learned how to improve the occupancy process. And so when teachers and students move into a new building, there's always a learning curve,
Right.
and we've identified some common issues that we've encountered as they've moved in, and we've worked to refine our processes to make that
Nice.
smoother. And so an example is being clearer on how the heating and cooling system works and helping educate the teachers and the students and the staff on how that system works,
Okay.
so that they're not fumbling around with it on the first couple of days and getting frustrated. So we do a little education ahead of time. We'll also educate them on the environmental aspects of the building, why
Nice.
we have such big windows and how those windows interact with the light fixtures so that there's enough natural light. The lights actually dim, so we save electricity. So we help to teach them all those things so they don't feel like the building's not working right. So that's one of those things that we've worked to improve. But every campus has their own unique issues
They
that we're
do.
going to find. And that's really where our construction management team and design team come into play. Is we ask them to really get in there and investigate what those existing conditions are so that we don't have any more surprises than we absolutely need to have throughout the course of construction.
Okay.
You know, we're always going to find things that we didn't anticipate, but
Yeah,
we try
absolutely.
to minimize that.
Absolutely. Now, I think the biggest misconception when I'm dealing with the public is that they think Measure E is only about buildings, but it
No.
includes more so. Can you explain more about that?
Yeah, in addition to the 66 classrooms that have been added to the district, we've also upgraded technology in 31 of the campuses. So we've added over 19,000 data drops to the
Wow.
district,
Okay.
and we've increased their data speed by 850%, which is just
Can
incredible.
you come to my house?
Exactly.
I would like that speed. Wow.
So also we've replaced a considerable amount of the old asbestos containing flooring
good,
with new
good.
flooring. So we've taken care of that.
100,000 square feet
Yeah,
that we've taken out.
over
So that's a
100,000 square
huge,
feet.
huge benefit
Yeah,
to the
that
kids
is.
and staff.
And then we've done quite a bit of utility work at the campuses. Over 5,000 linear feet of water piping and waste piping has been replaced. So,
Nice.
So we've been doing a lot, and a lot still to go.
Right. So when do you think you'll be done with everything? Everything on your list?
2024, I think.
So this
is-
program runs through 2024.
2024?
Yeah.
Okay, so we still have a few more years.
Mhm.
So if anything else that comes up between now and what was on your list, say something else malfunctions or breaks down or anything, can that be fixed through Measure E, or does that have to go through another fund?
Well, we would have to first see what it was.
Okay.
If it was something that already had Measure E funds allocated for it,
Then you can fix it.
then we would look at it and see if it would fall into Measure E's
Domain.
criteria.
Okay.
And then we would go from there. If it did not fall into the criteria, then we would look at other funds that would be potentially available. If it was growth, for instance, the enrollment growth that's happening here, developer fees would probably be one of the areas that, at least we would look at
Okay.
to have potential funding.
Okay, good. Now, I want you to dispel any other myths that you think that the general public thinks about when it comes to Measure E. Is there anything else, other misconceptions that you would like to just squash right now?
From misconceptions, not so much in that sense, but one of the difficulties that we've been having just with the Measure E program in itself is that to remain committed to the voters what they approved in Measure E.
Right.
And there's a scope of work and a list of projects and a lot of dollar value there. But there's explosive growth in the district.
Yes.
And to also accommodate that too is a great challenge. And the projects like Brookville and Patterson and American and Matos and Warm Springs and I know I'm leaving something out, as of 8, I think it was, all growth classrooms. And so that a lot of that's been accommodated in the criteria of the Measure E bond. And their allowable funds, but that's a challenge to fulfilling all of the projects that are
Right.
in the scope of work. But with the implementation plan that we have and that Banner has developed, the scope of work is there. It is accommodating 100% of the scope of work that was intended in Measure E.
Good.
And so we're on schedule, we're on budget,
Good.
we're
Congratulations. Yeah.
Well,
And,
thank you.
and I think it's also important to understand too that there's a $1.6 billion need for this district. So this bond takes care of about a third of the actual need of the facilities.
So, speaking of that particular point, there is a lot more to be done, but are there future projects scheduled within the district?
In terms of Measure E?
Uh-huh.
Oh, there's many.
Okay.
So we're starting our our elementary schools right now. So we have 3 in the design queue that are being permitted, and then we're going
Can
to.
you say which ones?
Off the top of my head, it's
Or is it top secret?
No, it's not top secret.
And these are modernization projects.
Yeah.
So it's Grimmer, Mission Valley, and Olivera.
Okay. So they're in the queue.
They're in the queue. Then we've got a couple more that we're going to be starting shortly, and then we've got our high schools that are in design. So we've got Mission San Jose that's in design. We've got
Kennedy
and Washington that are in
Okay.
design, and we also have a new classroom building that's going in on Washington right now.
Now, is Irvington done?
Irvington will be modernized at a later date, but we have done
Okay.
quite a bit of work out there.
Right.
So we did the new classroom building along with the data
Okay.
infrastructure.
Okay. How many campuses do we have total?
42 going on
42.
43 with the new elementary school.
Right. So out of the 42 campuses, there's something being done in all of them?
How many did we cover all?
All but 3 so far, I believe,
All
have
but
been
3?
touched by
Okay.
Measure E.
But they're on the list.
Oh yeah.
They're on the list, yeah.
Okay. I just can't imagine the process of determining what's priority at each campus, because every campus is in need of almost everything nowadays. That had to have been a tough decision to make, and also to present to the board to approve the changes. Was that a long process?
Well, there's a combination of factors that go into that. One is explosive growth within the district,
Right.
and that's an immediate need that something
Right.
has to happen. So new construction will focus on that. It'll either be new construction of buildings through Measure E, or it'll be through the developer fees with temporary portable classrooms to fill that need.
Okay.
Another factor is, of the bond projects, there was a needs assessment done prior to the long-range facilities plan, and it created a score of each of the campuses and rated it in different factors. But basically, if it was 1 to 100, and I think it was 100 being best, wasn't it?
Okay.
A lot of them are at the 70s or 60s and in that kind of range. So we took those scores, and the ones in the schools or the campuses that had the greatest need, we tried to put sooner rather than
Okay.
later.
Push them
And
up the
so
list.
that helped us prioritize
Okay.
the process and the modernizations and
Okay.
things.
Well, I expect you guys to come back next year to give us another progress report, if you don't mind, because this has been
Absolutely.
great, and I love hearing all the progress and seeing all the different new buildings. That's very exciting. Congratulations for being on budget and on your schedule. This is great. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And from everyone here at Community Conversations, we appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time.